So a lot of people right now are grappling with the whole issue of Israel and its involvement in Gaza long term. Some people saying Israel should annex Gaza. Other people are saying, well, they need to just go in fully, get rid of Hamas, and then someone else can run it. And then there are others who are saying, no, Israel shouldn't even do that, and we're just going to put them out the window for now because that's just insane, just to let Gaza just rebuild, Hamas rebuild, and then they just do what they plan to do on October 7th again, God forbid. I have a watch of Victor David Hanson talking about the whole issue of Israel annexing Gaza. By the way, Netanyahu has said that's not his policy. He's just going in to defeat Hamas and then lets other Arab countries control it. What does Victor Davis Hanson have to say about this?
Well, Victor, on Friday we talked a little bit about Gaza and Israel, but I had something to ask you, and news to bring up for our audience, and I just forgot about it. And that news is very important, that Netanyahu has said that Israelis are going to occupy Gaza, and so he's made a decision to go all the way through. Do you think this is a wise decision?
Well, it's no Israeli since 2006 has been in Gaza. They didn't want to stay there. Sharon got everybody out. Nobody wants to occupy it because it's a lose-lose situation. But what he's saying is, I think by occupying it, we're going to go block by block through the whole country and eliminate Hamas. I don't think that's possible, though, because you don't know who they are. Nobody's going to say, I'm openly a Hamas member. We have all these Western pollsters who say, oh, the Gazan people don't like Hamas. There's no evidence that that's true. The polls don't show that. Sometimes they say there's dislike. Sometimes they say there's not. But there's two alternatives. One is to go back pre-2000, October 7th of 2023, and that is just to beef up your defenses, build a better wall, and just wall it off and just say, don't want to be you, you don't want to be me, keep away. Or it's to go in and quote-unquote occupy it and destroy Hamas. I don't know which is preferable because they're both bad choices. But I think that the pre-October 7th, this is what I don't understand. Khalil, you remember him? The one he just said the other day, he's back now, back in the sense he's protesting again. He just said the other day that there was no alternative to October 7th. So he was glorifying October 7th. But prior to October 7th, the times that I'd been there, I think 2 out of the last 3 years in Israel, they were very happy that they had solved the Gaza problem, they thought. They had the kibbutzes right near the Gaza crossing points. That was an area where there were a lot of left-wing Israelis, liberal Israelis, people who felt that the more poor Gazans experience magnanimity from Israel, high wages, making 3 times more than they could at Gaza, coming across every day to work in agriculture, to work in construction. When they were injured or needed health care, the Israelis would take them to Israeli doctors and hospitals to get, first world care. And they thought that obviously they were taking the most radical of Palestinians and winning them over. And what they didn't realize is that's not how it works. In the mind of the Gaza militant, I shouldn't even say militants. I mean, there were 6,000 people that crossed the border on October 7th. The minority were Hamas. Once the word got out that you could kill, rape, steal, assault Jews, and there was no IDF there, it was like a free-for-all. They all wanted to get over there and join. So the Gazans interpreted the Israeli magnanimity as weakness, to be despised and not to be feared. Not strength is to be feared. So I don't know where they go from here. They have the first choices didn't work before October 7th. The second choice of just walling it off with not just an electronic quote-unquote fence, I mean a real wall. I'm not sure that would work, but I know that going in there and cleansing Hamas out is going to be very difficult.
Yeah, it will be very difficult. I have a feeling the Israelis can do it. So
let's hope so.
I
But I think the world is, I think Trump is right. He's saying basically that we're in an existential war, Gondor versus Mordor. And if you're Canada and you or Britain and you're on the side of Hamas and you want to recognize that, then we don't want to deal with you for a while. That's what he said.
Yeah, I know. I like
With
Trump's
tariffs,
support of
yeah.
them. Well, you know what? Speaking of Trump, he said also that because of the situation of aid going into Gaza and how Hamas is interrupting it, that the United States may have to take over aid. That was another story I hadn't quite talked to you about. I don't know if you have any commentary on that. That's U.S., the purveyor of aid to the Gazans in order to solve the famine crisis. I'm not sure there's a famine crisis. There's
There's
all
not a
sorts of
famine
reports.
crisis. There's a crisis of Hamas hijacking food from the United States, Israel, or the UN, and then expropriating it and then charging its own hungry people money or allegiance, blackmailing them. And if people want to get food from the United States or Israel, which there's food there, they're going to be identified, named, and somebody that night is going to knock on their door and beat them up or kill them. Until that's ended, there's not going to be much hope. And I just don't see much hope. I really don't. They apparently do not want to live like the 2 million Arabs inside Israel who have a first world standard of living and they're treated with freedom of expression. They have a pretty good economy. They're not trying to kill all the Jews for the most part, and they're happy compared to their counterparts in Palestine or Jordan or Egypt or anywhere in the Arab world other than the Gulf.
Is the U.S. taking over aid the solution to that? I'm not dead sure
I
about
don't think the
that.
U.S. should get involved with the Gazans at all. If anybody listening can tell me, well, you're wrong. Every time we've engaged them, like George W. Bush did, I think we should have open elections. And if Hamas gets elected, they get elected. And we'll respect that. Yeah, we had one election one time, or we need to deal with Arafat, and we'll have him at Camp David, and we'll make sure that he gets 98% of the whole West Bank for his own Palestinian state. And anything that the Israelis want to keep around Jerusalem, they'll give them a commiserate part of territory from pre-1947 Israel, and they'll just switch, and they'll all be happy. No, he didn't want to do that. They want to destroy Israel. I know that because I walk across the Stanford campus, and during this whole post-October 7th, I listened to what the wealthy, upscale Middle East students were saying in their pro-Hamas demonstrations. It wasn't that they want to have a two-state solution. It was they were river to the sea, river to the sea.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the fundamental error that the West just can't grapple with, which is that the Palestinian cause has never been about a legitimate grievance or a desire for self-determination. It never has. And they insist, they project onto them that, no, that's what you really want. That's what it's all about. They believe the half-cooked lies of the Palestinian leaders when they say that it's just about, just about statehood. When if you just listen to them for a moment or look at their history for a moment, you'll see that it's not about that it's just a cynical ploy, the whole Palestinian thing, in order to destroy Israel. They don't care about statehood. The whole story of Gaza over the last 25 years proves that. Israel says, go ahead, have autonomy there, create a mini-state, and look what happens. October 7th was your answer. Hamas being elected was your answer. So there's fundamental myths that the West are continuing to indulge in that is perpetuating the conflict. But all these things are negative reasons, defensive reasons for why Israel has to do what it's doing in Gaza. I would say a positive reason. He said, oh no, it's obviously none of these are good choices. Actually, I would like to suggest that Gaza, after all the blood that Israel's had to shed defending itself from these monsters of Hamas, and given that legally and historically and biblically and from divine right, Gaza is Jewish, I think it should belong to Israel. This is our land. Gaza is the Jewish people's land, from every angle you want to look at it. And the Arabs who are living there have blown it. We've tried time and again, as Victor has said. And so I don't think it's particularly radical to say, as the President of the United States suggested just last year, that maybe we should be looking at relocating the Arabs living there to another part of the Arab world to which they are indigenous to, of which has a landmass that's 100 times the size of Israel. And then they won't, forget Israel suffering for a second, the Arabs won't suffer. They'll be better off. Their leaders and people won't feel this need to be at the forefront of some cosmic battle, Islamist battle against the Jewish state. And from the more positive angle, yes, this is Jewish land. And everyone and anyone will fare far better under Israeli sovereignty than under Hamas sovereignty and this faux concept of Palestinian sovereignty. So it may sound radical, but I'm saying this in the interest of everyone, both sides of the conflict, and in the interest of peace, but also in the interest of the truth. Before we wrap up, I want to share something important with you. The entire anti-Israel movement is built on one central accusation, that in 1948, Israel stole the land, and ever since, Palestinians have simply been resisting. But what if everything we've been told about this story is untrue? What if the real history of 1948 shows not Arabs being forced out, but Jews, while seeking peace, having to fight for their survival against a genocidal enemy that willed its destruction long before Israel's re-establishment? Have a watch of the trailer for our new, groundbreaking and essential documentary entitled What Really Happened in 1948. And if you want to see the full film, just click the link in the video description. In 1948, the world witnessed the rebirth of the Jewish state, the State of Israel. A moment celebrated as a miracle of survival and self-determination after centuries of persecution and the horrors of the Holocaust. Yet for decades, this event has been twisted into a narrative of theft and catastrophe, with the so-called Nakba portrayed as Israel's original sin, where Jews allegedly stole Arab land and displaced innocents in a premeditated act of ethnic cleansing. But what if this story is fundamentally inverted? What if the cause and effect are the other way around? Not Israel aggressively seizing territory and Arabs responding in self-defense, but Arabs, driven by deep-seated hatred, rejecting the Jews' legal and historical rights to live in their ancestral homeland and waging a genocidal war long before Israel's re-establishment. In this JTV Plus documentary, we're going to uncover the unvarnished truth about 1948, the centuries of pogroms and anti-Semitic violence that set the stage, the Arab leaders' explicit calls for extermination, and the defensive war Israel fought to secure its existence. We'll challenge the pervasive lies head-on, showing how Arab rejection of peace wasn't about creating a Palestinian state, but about denying Jews the right to live at all. From the Nazi-allied leader of the Arabs in Palestine, the Mufti al-Husseini, to the forgotten occupations by Jordan and Egypt, where no Palestinian state was even considered, this is the story of a conflict rooted not in displacement, but in whether the Jews deserve to live in their homeland. Join us as we debunk the myths with facts, confront the historical record fairly but firmly, and reveal why 1948 was not an act of aggression, but a righteous response to annihilation. This is what really happened in 1948. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.